So tell me more. What is it that you learned about kind of how the brain functions there that helped you come up with a structure or an approach that arguably worked a little better?
So I have a three-part framework that I use to essentially accomplish agile transformation. When I said I became a student, I went to go work for a company that did agile transformations. And Newper actually left the security world as well at the same time and did agile transformations essentially with me, and some without me. But the uh, I learned the framework for agile transformations, and I evolved it for DevOps transformations, and now I'm applying it to DevSecOps transformations. It involves 3 steps. And the first step is essentially win the hearts and minds of the developers. So the number one hurdle right now between security and development is there's a lack of trust.
Mhm.
So the developers think that security is giving them unfunded mandates. They have no idea what my job really entails. I'm just going to ignore them. The security folks get frustrated by that and say, well, these developers are putting out crap that's going to get us hacked. We have to police them. We have to gatekeep their product into production. And so there's just an inherent lack of trust. So the first step in the 3-part framework is win the hearts and minds of the people you're trying to influence. And that involves fundamentally changing language. Like the definition we talked about at the beginning, DevSecOps is the same as DevOps. Oh, well, that hooks their thinking. That fits with their thinking. Now, people who say, no, it's not DevSecOps, it's SecDevOps. The security comes first. They're just wrong. The security does not come first. If you don't have a product that delights customers, that has customers, you don't need any security, right? If nobody's using the thing, there's nothing to secure.
Yeah.
So you have to have customers, and so you have to be building product. And so if you use language that makes it sound like you're the most important thing, a security person, and your concerns are the only ones that really matter until those are met, then you sort of already lost them. And so you got to be careful about that. The definition is one example. I have this thing called the trust algorithm is another example. I have this other page called the pledge, and the pledge starts with the word trust. And the bottom line of the pledge, and then there's a few bullets, but the bottom line of the pledge is that we in security understand that we are not the gatekeepers. We're not the police. We're not the auditors. We are now toolsmiths giving you self-service tools that you can use to improve the security of your products. See how I said your products and not, I'm trying to put it back on them. And advisors, coaches, consultants, essentially, to help you with that. So that's step 1 of the 3-part framework, win the hearts and minds. Step 2 is give them a shallow on-ramp. Don't give them this 300-page policy manual. Don't give them this list of 45 practices that everybody should be doing. Give them the 1, 2, or 3 that are most relevant to them, the biggest bang for the buck for their current state. And I have a whole framework on how we determine that. It's very context sensitive, which 1, 2, or 3 you recommend to them. And they get to self-select from a small set at the end of the workshop that we launch teams with. And then the third thing is executive engagement, management engagement. Give them a visualization, know how they're doing, gamify it, get the managers and the executives competing with it, to make it sort of trickle down from the top down as well. So you need the bottom up. For the first 2 elements were bottom up. The last element was very top down. And let me give you one more example here before we move on.
Sure.
So hooking the brain of the developers is really the key here. If you want a developer to pay attention to vulnerabilities that were found by a security person, if that feedback comes to the development team 3 weeks after the developer wrote the code, it's too late. So think about it this way. The developer is in love with the code she wrote this morning. It's her new heartthrob. She wants nothing more than her teammates to think, wow, that's the most handsome code ever. And so the mechanism is called a pull request. So developers sort of live off the adrenaline, the little endorphin rush they get by submitting a pull request in the morning. And then in the afternoon, someone on their team validates it and says, yep, it's good enough to get into the next higher level branch. And that's sort of accomplishment. If you give them feedback right in the pull request, Right when the reviewer is looking at it, if there's a list of all the regular testing, the unit tests, which is normal for most teams now, integration tests, which is also normal, style checks, also normal for a lot of teams. If you add to that list of normal things they're used to getting checked automatically at the pull request, security checks, it looks just like another thing they'll have to get a checkbox on before the reviewer can approve the pull request. And so if one of those checkboxes turn red that morning, the code they wrote this morning, that's like a wart on the, you know, on their new heartthrob's face. They're gonna jump through hoops to get that fixed and pay a lot of attention to it. If it's something that comes from 3 weeks ago, that was my old heartthrob. I don't care about that code, and God forbid it should be something that was written by a different developer 3 years ago.